We are going to talk about order of operations real quick. Hopefully this is something that you learned last year or the year before, and so I just want to go over it again real quick as a refresher and maybe introduce you to some new ideas for this class. So firstly, beautiful, but you know me, I couldn't live unless it was beautiful. So here we go. Done a little bit of decor. Order of operations, you may have referred to as PEMDAS before. PEMDAS stands for the order in which we do the operation. So the very first thing we do is parentheses. So I've got some examples of parentheses here. And this is actually if there are actual operations inside parentheses. Okay, so you'll notice that I have two arrows coming off of this, and that's because sometimes you have parentheses and there's something inside like this, but there's no actual thing that I can do with this 4x. So in this case, it means multiply. So it actually would fall under the M category. So I just want you to be aware that sometimes you'll see a parentheses, but it actually means multiplication. So you need to look inside and say, is there anything to do in there? Then I wanted to show you over here that sometimes parentheses are invisible, or what we would call implied. So for example, if you have a fraction, you need to do whatever operations are in the numerator, and it's implied that the whole numerator is in parentheses. So before you even look at the fraction and what you're supposed to do everything you can in the numerator. In addition to that, if there are operations that can be done in the denominator, you would then do that and ignore the numerator. And once you've done all those operations, then you would actually do the division. In addition to that, if you have something like a radical, this is a square root, this inside here, there's an implied parentheses. So before you would actually take the actual square root, you want to do these things first and then do the square root. Okay, so implied parentheses, and there is one instance where it doesn't actually mean parentheses. Then we apply exponents. And then notice that this might look a little different because I've added these blocked side by side and would put some arrows in here. And that's because multiplication and division are inverse operations. They're like two sides of a coin. So instead of always doing multiplication first and then division second, we actually just do whichever occurs first from left to right. Okay, then the same applies for addition and subtraction. They are also inverses of each other, so they're opposite sides of the same coin, and you just do whichever occurs first from left to right. So that's why I like to write it like this. Now I just have some reminders down here that if there are operations inside the parentheses, follow PEMDAS again. So you know that you need to start with the parentheses, but if there's lots of things to do in there, start with order of operations. Parentheses, exponents, yada, yada, yada. Then only do one step at a time. Maybe underline or highlight as you go. So again, you have to realize that I don't want you just entering these into a calculator. I need to see work. And the best way to do this is one step at a time, and I'll show you what I mean in the example. And then lastly, do not add an equal sign. If the problem doesn't start with one, don't add one, okay? So here is our example in this yellow triangle. It's shaped like this because it's going to start more complicated, and we should get down to one number at the end. So what I want to do is parentheses. So notice that I have two sets of parentheses here. One just has a -2 in here. There's actually nothing to do with a -2. It's just a number. Here, on the other hand, 5 minus 9, that's an operation, and that I can do. So as I said, I'm going to underline or highlight as I go the one step I'm going to do. So I'm going to do maybe like a little curly bracket. That's the one thing I am going to do. So 5 minus 9 is -4. If you want to use a calculator for that one step, go for it. But then don't do any more steps. Just bring everything else down. Notice I'm bringing this parentheses down, okay? And everything else is going to stay the same. A 4 is out front, plus 2 to the third power, and then again, everything on this side, plus 12 divided by parentheses -2. Great. Now, what I want to do is exponents. because again, even though I have parentheses, this is just a -4 and just a -2. So those are going to actually not mean you're doing something with parentheses. So my exponent is this guy here, 2 to the 3rd power. So again, you can use a calculator on just the one step if you want, but power means times itself. So this means 2 times 2 times 2, 3 times. Well, 2 times 2 is 4, times 1 more 2. So 4 times 2, that's 8. So now we have 8. And now rewrite everything else. Plus 4 parentheses -4 plus 12 divided by parentheses -2. Okay, great. So first two done. Now I'm going to do all multiplication and division from left to right, but again, only one step at a time. So as I mentioned, if the number is in parentheses and there's a number in front of it, this implies multiplication, and that's the first one from left to right. There's division, but multiplication, if we're starting at this end, that's the one that comes first. So 4 times -4 is -16. Bring down this 8 and the plus sign, don't forget the plus sign, plus 12 divided by -2. So this -2, sometimes people will write parentheses around negative numbers just so that you don't think that it's divided -2. So we could do the same thing here and add parentheses around this -16. So you don't think it's plus -16, it's plus -16. Okay, so all that is it's a use to separate it out so that you don't get confused on whether this negative is an operation or a negative sign. Okay, so now we're still in the multiplication and division category. So that's addition, that's addition. Ooh, look, division. So you can do 12 divided by -2, and that's -6. Okay, and then I'm going to bring everything else down. 8 plus, I'm going to put my -16 in parentheses again, plus, and then I'll put my -6 in parentheses. Again, that's just to tell us, hey, it's a -16, not plus minus. Awesome. Then we do addition and subtraction from left to right because all the multiplication and division is done. So first we have plus. So 8 plus -16, that's -8. Bring down the plus sign, bring down the -6. Now there's only plus left. -8 plus -6, that is -14. So notice it looks like a lot of work, but you're just doing one step at a time. So notice every time I just brought down everything else around the one step I did. So that changed, but everything else around it stayed the same. And we want to make sure that we're showing all of our work, again, because we're going to be showing our work a lot, especially when we get to solving equations. So there you go. We have a little bit of practice, and I will have other links for you to look at if you want a few more examples. Great. Good luck.